Welcome to this edition of Michael's Weekly Perspective Podcast. This is podcast episode 48. In this podcast, I'm going to give you an update on what's going on with me. That's all for this edition, and stay tuned. Hello, and it's great to be back with you once again on this edition of Michael's Weekly Perspective Podcast. This is podcast episode 48. To get hold of this podcast, you can choose to either send me an email or you can call using the listener line. The phone number for this podcast is 404-923-0115. That's 404-923-0115. You can also send me an email, and the email address is munnmichael68@gmail.com. That's munnmichael68@gmail.com. First of all, I would like to apologize for not releasing any podcast episodes for the past 2 weeks. I've been very busy getting ready for school. I'm now a senior at GAB. I'll be graduating next year. This year, in addition to all the requirement courses that I have to take before graduation, I started taking some new courses. 3 of them that I never took before when I was in GAB last year. They are Drum Ensemble, Economic, and Horticulture. When I graduate, my goal is to go to Minnesota for 9 months to attend the training center operated by National Federation of the Blind called Blind Inc. to learn some daily independent living skills. And then after that, I'm going to proceed to attending the University of Minnesota. Some people say Minnesota have a better transportation program. I don't know about that, so I guess I will have to see when I get there. I'm hoping one day I can ask if one of the staff from Blind Inc. would willing to be a guest of the podcast and talk about Blind Inc. and Minneapolis in general. Besides sharing with you the class that I take and my goal when I graduate high school, this week I was also involved with GAB's sport team. The first sport for the year is Goalball. Many of you know Goalball is a sport for the blind. This week, for Goalball practice, we mainly practiced drills such as blocking the ball and sliding left and right. If you are a Goalball player, you know what I'm talking about. There is a rule when playing Goalball. When you have your eye shade or sleep shade, whatever you call it, when you have that on, you cannot touch it anymore. If you touch it, that's considered cheating. During Goalball practice this week, I also learned that everybody, if they're playing in a tournament, they have to wear sleep shade or eye shade. It doesn't matter if a person is low vision. Those are some things that I have learned this week during Goalball practice. Besides getting involved in the Goalball team, I am also considering running for a term at the student council within GAB. This is the first year, as far I know, that GAB is letting students have a say. I think this is a good idea because we, the students, need to get involved. So this way, we can voice our opinion. There is something that I love that GAB do for students, and there is something that I don't. Electing some students to represent the entire student group within GAB is perhaps the best idea. This is a good way for students to practice democracy. I also make my dream come true this week. I finally got a microphone that I've been wanting for several years now. This microphone is called Blue Yeti Pro. This is the most expensive microphone that I ever owned for my entire life. This microphone have a knob for adjusting the headphone volume, and it also have 2 knobs for adjusting the gain output for microphone and a knob for switching pickup patterns. There is also a headphone jack where a user can plug in a headphone to listen to themselves and their computer. This is a very good tool if you are a screen reader user like me. By the way, this entire podcast episode is recorded using the Blue Yeti. And this is it for this edition of Michael's Weekly Perspective Podcast. If you have any questions or comment, please do not hesitate to send me an email, and that email address is munnmichael68@gmail.com. That's munnmichael68@gmail.com. You can also call me using the listener line, and that number is 404-923-0115. That's 404-923-0115. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and have a nice day.